In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know about the Ninjatrader web-based platform. From the basics of just a chart setup to the advanced tricks of setting up an ATM strategy order for your active trading. Now, first off, if you've never used Ninjatrader, it's an extremely powerful trading platform, and I'll leave a link for it in the description below. Now, the first thing you're going to do when you set up Ninjatrader is you're going to want to create the correct trading data plan. Even to demo trade, you're gonna wanna have real-time data, otherwise it's delayed a lot of the time. And the first thing to do that is when you go to plans, under account settings, you're gonna wanna go to your subscription. You might, if you don't have anything, you're gonna see just create a subscription. Once you do that, you're gonna have a couple of options. Now they have two main options up here. Generally, you're gonna just need the basic level 1 data. Level 2 data is if you're really looking to go into the order book. I don't personally trade using that, but if that's something you do, that's what you're gonna wanna do. Now, I would suggest going in here and instead of just selecting include all market data, customize it, because what you can do here is, well, they have a couple of other options for very fancy data, but the main thing is you can get the data individually if you want to just trade a couple markets. If you just want to trade something like the CME, which is the main indexes like the NASDAQ futures, oil futures, S&P 500 futures. If you're not sure what's in there, you can just click on the view products button and it'll bring up this tab. And so that will only cost you $4 a month for doing level 1 of that. And so that's what I would highly suggest if you're looking to just trade a couple of markets, because that'll save you some money consistently over time. And then other than that, to get started, all you have to do is just click this button here, or you can click this trade button here on the left, and that'll essentially open up your account. And I'm just gonna launch simulated just so I can mess around and kind of show you how things work. And so what just came up is the default that I just had that I was messing around with. But initially, you're gonna have the default setup, and what you probably wanna do is you wanna exit out of every tab up here, because you're gonna wanna start out with a blank setup, just so you can kind of start with settings that you want and you can build out the platform that you wanna be using. And so the main thing here is essentially at the top here is your plus sign. Click new. This is essentially how you can drag in every type of module that they have. The main one, of course, being charts. Now, first off, I would say is go in here and create new template. If you don't have any, just type in a new one here and click save, and it will essentially come in here as that's the one you're working on, and then it will save to that constantly. Anytime you're setting it up, it'll automatically save. So every time you come back in, it's the exact same thing and you don't have to rebuild it. Now, once you drag that blank chart, you can just click here and either type in what you're looking for, or you'll have popular instruments pop up. And so here, this is the ES futures. And so right away, this is kind of, I think, their default chart, or maybe what I had as default before, but it's not how I like it. And so initially up here, there's pretty self-explanatory tools of, okay, your interval here is the time chart. If you want, a 1 minute chart, hour, volume range, your options are there. The type of candlesticks, I just like normal candlesticks. And then you have your configure button here. If you have any indicators on there by default, there's a simple moving average. I'm just gonna click the trash button to remove that. And then you can also click here to add indicators. It's really easy to just go in here. They have them kind of categorized. You can also click this search button up here. And then also they have community indicators, which brings up essentially a massive list of, the most popular ones, but you can also just filter or search for other ones that are used. And then you can see, how many times they're downloaded and stuff like that. So those are really nice if you have a community one you're looking for. And then once you have your chart saved how you exactly like, you can create a template so you can have your, day trading or default chart setup. And so again, it's saved every time and you don't have to reset the settings to exactly how you want. And so one thing though, there's this chart setting button I glossed over. This will allow you to look at certain things going on in the market. And so you can see there's a couple things you can essentially turn off or highlight them. That essentially means they're on. Currently right now I'm in short, like a little position here. You can see it's up almost $400. And the main thing is there's also in here you can add other things. I would highly suggest essentially adding show order fill lines, show trade lines, and then also you don't have to do show fill lines because that'll essentially show where you got filled in your trades. But the main thing is when you're actively trading, and we'll get to that more in a minute, those are pretty important to look at. Now, other super basic things here is crosshairs. I have it the show crosshair on default. I always just like having that because it allows you to kind of easily see where your mouse is, especially compared to the y-axis and the price of where the market currently is. And then as well, you can do global. I would suggest not doing global unless you want to have multiple charts on the same screen. Now, the kind of last couple things here is data box. That's just this little guy right here. You can toggle that on or off. Now, to move it around, you have to click and drag on the 3 dots in the top left. Otherwise, you can't click and drag it. That just shows the current candle that you're moused over, not the current live candlestick. It's the one that your mouse is vertically over in terms of where it is on the x-axis. So I don't really find that super useful, at least on a smaller time frame chart. And then you have your drawing tools, your basic drawing tools. And they're all pretty self-explanatory. You know, for me, you have to click to toggle it and then unclick to untoggle it. And then the basics is you need a mouse over it until you see that little circle pop up, double click it, and then that brings up your settings. And then what you need to do, or if you want to at least, is make sure to save as default if you have a certain style for that you like, and then it'll come up the same every time, and then you can easily select it and just click the delete button to remove. A couple other settings here is in the top right, you will see an H that toggles hotkeys, and you'll see when that's on, if you go all the way to the left, there's this little keyboard thing that pops up here. You can click disable or just click retoggle to show that on and off. And then there's also the view settings. Essentially all this does is, it's a couple other things here. One I suggest to put on is bar countdown settings. Just click enable. I wouldn't put alerts on. All it does is it puts up here at the top left next to what your chart is, essentially a countdown of the time it will take until that bar is finished forming. So really nice for candlesticks that are based on time. And another thing is trade mode. You'll see that hides this main tab here. And so for me, I like to trade on the chart. And so I like to have that on there. Now, if you're trading on the DOM or something, that's not necessarily as important. And then as well here, another couple important things is you can roll forwards the contract or roll backwards. So just clicking that, it will put it to September. Obviously, I'm in June right now contract, and so September really has no volume on it. And so definitely want to roll back to the June. Now you can see here, it rolled me back and the chart's all funky. Just click this arrow right here at the top right that'll appear, and it will reset your chart to the basics. And so that's really simple if for some reason it gets messed up. So to get a new tab, you just left click this new tab button, and let's say, okay, I want to look at the NASDAQ now. And then from there, I can just go to templates and click day trading. Now that chart's a little messed up still. And I think the candlestick sometimes doesn't change on the template. It's a little funky, but most of the settings are carried over. To go into a couple of other things, let's say you want to put in, let's say this market analyzer, and then also we can do the super DOM here as well. And so what this will do is, now one thing is you can see there's this little button next to it that you can turn to different colors. This is essentially just how you can link multiple charts together so that every time you change one, that it will go through all of them. So right here, I can just add a couple of charts to here and say, okay, I want to look at the NASDAQ, and it'll bring up the NASDAQ on all these 3 options, and it will change the chart to how you want. Now, one thing that might help too is for me, my chart, when I change it, it doesn't load the chart properly. There's something messing it up. And so if you go to chart settings here, you can tell it to continue auto fit. And so I can put that on. And so because I have that on and it's not working, it's probably because of some indicator I have on. And so that could happen if you put on an indicator. And so I would put bars only. And so it'll continuously do that as the candlesticks move forwards. And so every time a new candlestick is added, it'll essentially auto fit it again for you. And you can see here as I drag it around, it essentially auto fits the chart to how it makes sense. Now you can have this all on one screen, or as well, another thing here is if you want to maximize one chart specifically and look at it, just this little button up here, and then to put it back to your main setup, just click that unminimize again. So essentially that's this button up here. Same thing with any of these, you can maximize them and then bring them to the smaller chart. Now, you don't have to have it like this to where everything's on one chart, where you have multiple charts here, you know, really small and everything. You can as well open up multiple tabs of this NinjaTrader and then put them on a different screen. I generally do that, so I would suggest doing that as well. But you know, if you want kind of one main screen, that is a good way to do it too. Frankly, I would suggest using the main NinjaTrader desktop platform, but you know, if you're a Mac user or you feel like this is important to use, or you just rather use this, especially if you're on the go, definitely a good option to use. But I will say the NinjaTrader main platform is definitely stronger. Now let's get into setting up your ATM strategy. This is super powerful when it comes to trading. Now up here, to turn this on, you know, you need to turn on trade mode essentially. And what that'll do is it allow you to, at a click of a button, do a buy and sell based on the chart. You know, you can either put a sell limit order above the market price, or you can, you know, put a buy stop above the market price. And then if you go below, it'll change to a sell stop and a buy stop. So it's super nice in terms of that. And then you can just say exit on these to close them out really quickly. And so just to kind of start from scratch here, as I have this trade on it, you can just use these buttons to trade as well. Super easy. I can just do close to close out of that whole position. And you'll see it has this little line drawn that. And that is from, if you go to the chart settings here, show trade lines. I don't really think that is something that I care to see, but you know, it's kind of nice when you're trying to visualize what you're trading. So if we just kind of show all real quick to kind of show you, that'll show that. So to go into the ATM strategy setup now, you got a couple of gears here. Now, first off, I would do day generally for your trades. Good to cancel means it's good until you cancel it. So it's literally forever. That's okay if you have a limit order that you're trying to just see until it gets filled, and you know, you're checking it in every couple of hours or every day. But so initially you're just gonna have this off here. And what you need to do is click this gear button to bring up this setting for it. Initially you're not gonna have any, so you need to click this plus sign here to create one. And so, you know, name it anything you want. I would generally say, you know, try and name it something that makes sense, because you're gonna have multiple. I like to do, you know, let's say a 1-to-1 risk reward ratio with a 40 tick stop loss. And so what that means is, you know, we'll go through that in a minute, is, well, so the settings here is show in ticks. I would suggest doing ticks because that's easily translatable through markets. Now, you could do in terms of value. If you say, hey, I just want to have a $100 stop loss every time and a $100 profit target, that actually makes a lot of sense for that kind of trading. But be aware that different markets will have different sizes for that based on how much their ticks are valued at. And then of course, the volatility of the market will play in on that as well. And then what you have here as well is you can have a target profit and a stop loss, which essentially means when I enter in, it puts in both of those. Or you can have it just do one or the other. A lot of the time, just do a stop loss only. Mainly this is on the NinjaTrader desktop platform, but those are options in there as well. To match what I kind of put up here, this says 40 in the title, so I'm gonna do a 40 tick profit target and a 40 tick stop loss. And essentially you can change it to a stop, which is just a stop market order, or a stop limit, or a trailing stop, or even an auto break even and an auto break even trail stop. And so what it does is it'll say, hey, if you're at, let's say 20 ticks in terms of profit target, it'll auto move your stop loss to break even. I don't think that's a bad necessarily way to trade, but I don't do that myself. And then there's also things in here on how your auto break even moves, okay? So I would suggest when you're testing this out, always test it on a demo account, kind of see how it plays around, because you don't want to be in a trade and you're not really sure how that plays out. Essentially what this will do, this is kind of a nice basic one. We'll just click save, and then you want to go up here and click the drop down menu and click the one you want. And then I'll just say sell market here. and you can see that it puts in the order right here. The blue is where my trade entered, and then down here is the profit target, and up here is the stop loss. And so you can see here it's moving down pretty quickly. What you can do with these as well, and so you can see it just auto-filled there basically. Now one thing to show you here, so now here this is red because I am essentially buying the position, versus if I close this out, a sell, it's green and blue. So now what you can do as well here with this is you can move this around. So let's say, oh, I want to move my profit target a little further away, or my stop loss a little closer. You can move this around so it allows you to have a lot of adjustability when you are trading. Now the other thing with this, if you want to make it a little more advanced, if we go back up to the gear here, we can edit our current one, and you can click this plus sign. This essentially adds another stop loss and profit. And so essentially the idea with this would be is, okay, if I'm trading 2 contracts in total, well, I want one to be, let's say, a $80 take profit and one to be a $40. And so to use this now, make sure you put in the correct contracts that it needs. That order needs 2, so I'll click buy market here, and you can see that I have my 2 orders here for your take profits, and then the 1 stop loss order here. Now you can see right now they were overlapped, and it says 1 next to it, but I know there's 2 there, and so I had to click and drag to see both of those. So it's a little confusing. On the main Ninjatrader desktop platform, these will combine, so you can kind of use both at the same time versus having to drag them separately. But grand scheme of things, not too big of a deal. You just got to remember that you know that there's 2 right there, and then here you can see there's the 1 split here and the other 1 split there, and then your entries here, and as well you can see the amount of money here. And so that's really the main course of how this works and how to unleash the power of this platform. It's super useful for even actively trading like this, either on this chart style or using some of the other features that they have. Now, if you're just jumping into this, you probably need a little bit of a refresher and a detailed walkthrough on how futures work and how to consistently execute trading them on these platforms. And so check out this video right here. It'll walk you through everything you need to know about trading futures, and as well as how to get started with a strategy on these platforms.